Next, we have Collective Mining Limited. It trades on the New York Stock Exchange American under the symbol CNL and on the TSX under the symbol CNL. It's a gold, silver, copper, and tungsten exploration company with projects in Caldas, Colombia, which was founded by the team that developed and sold Continental Gold Inc. to Zijin Mining for approximately $2 billion in enterprise value. Please welcome its executive chairman, Ari Sussman. Welcome to the conference, Ari.
Thank you for having me, Anna, and hello, audience.
All right, the floor is yours. Call me back when you're ready for questions.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to flip through my slide deck, and please feel free to enter questions, so we can discuss them at the end. Quick disclaimer: I will be making forward-looking statements. I'm sure you're aware of this. As mentioned by Anna, we sold our prior company named Continental Gold to Zijin Mining for $2 billion in March of 2020. And quickly got back to work to form Collective Mining. Continental Gold was also in Colombia, and we discovered, which is the largest gold deposit in the country, and built, which is now the largest gold mine in the country, and we're back at it again. Before I go into the excitement of the projects, let's just do some I like to call this housekeeping. There is the share structure. We have 77.6 million shares outstanding. We're very well cashed up. We have today just under 40 million US. We are fully financed for 2025. That drill program in 2025 is up to 7 rigs, and we will drill somewhere around 180,000 feet of diamond core. So we're very active and lots of activity happening, and I'll show you why we're excited in a few minutes when we get to the presentation. You can see the list of analysts that cover us and their various target prices. And lastly, if you wondering if management plus insiders are well aligned with shareholders, I think that pie chart on the bottom left speaks for itself. We control management insiders plus a strategic about 45% of the company. I personally own about just over 14% of the company in shares, so we're very aligned with shareholders. Of interest, that strategic investor is Agnico Eagle. They've invested in the company in 2 financing rounds, and we expect them to continue. Colombia, for those that don't know it, and worry about it, because I hear this constantly. Look, this is a wonderful place. So what you don't know about Colombia, this is the oldest democracy in South America. It is the only country in South America that has never had a military coup or anything like that. Rule of law is very strong, and the government is set up almost identical to here in the United States. So there's excellent check and balances between the president's office and Congress. It's not a huge mining destination yet, but as you can see from the chart on the right, there are lots of mines dominated primarily by coal at this point. But of interest, Cerrejón Coal, which is owned by Glencore, is the world's largest open pit coal mine. Cerro Matoso, owned by South 32, is the world's 3rd largest nickel mine. The project that we sold to Zijin is called Buritica, which you can see on that list. It produces about 300,000 ounces of gold per annum. And you will see our 2 projects, Guayabalas and San Antonio. They are sitting right next door to another mine, which is on that right-hand chart, named Marmato, owned by RS Mining, which is also listed on the NYSE American. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. The challenge in Colombia, depending on where you go, is security. We are in Caldas. That is why we selected this department, that's what they call their states, to operate for a few reasons. Number one, we're right next door to Marmato, which I just mentioned. What you probably do not know is Marmato is the 2nd longest continuously producing mine in the Americas at about 540 years. So gold has been coming out of there for a very long time. As you would imagine, in a small state, it's just over 1 million people in the state. Most people have had mining in their lineage or currently in one way, shape, or form. So it's very pro-mining. Secondly, I mentioned security. So this is the state with the highest education rate in the country. Why? Because it has the most universities per capita, and the result is a very low unemployment rate. There's effectively full employment here. So because of that, the challenge of security in Colombia does not exist in this state. The main industries are in the state are mining and coffee. And as I mentioned, most people are employed who want a job, can get a job. And as a result, criminality, which exists in the south of Colombia, is really not here because it thrives on poverty. And this is not a poor state. This is the best example of a middle-class state. So this is a winning combination: pro-mining, and high education, and very safe. And we're lucky to be here. Now, looking at our projects, a key point in mining, which is forgotten, especially today with the high inflation that the world's been enduring, is infrastructure. So you can see the mine next to us named Marmato, and you see our two projects, Guayabalas and San Antonio. That squiggly white line cutting that image down the center is the Pan American Highway. For those unfamiliar, that is the main highway that connects the southern tip of Argentina almost to Panama. There's something called the Darien Gap, which is not paved for maybe 100 miles or so to make that connection. Importantly, abutting that highway is high voltage run-of-river hydropower with tons of capacity and cheap rates. Colombia, of interest, is the leader in hydropower in South America. Most of its energy is generated that way. I know some of you, many of you, I'm sure, have been to Mexico and other countries when you think of blackouts and brownouts. Colombia does not endure that because it's got a lot of bodies of water, a lot of moving water, and reliable power. And lastly, you'll note in the bottom left of that image, the population is actually 37,000 people. So because we have people that are skilled in mining, we've got road access right through the project coming off of a major highway and power. That means we will never have to build a camp here, and infrastructure is already brought to us. All one will need to do here is build a mine, and that is a winning combination. Let's look at the Guayabalas project and why it is so exciting. If we have time at the end, we can talk about San Antonio, but let's focus on Guayabalas. Okay, so we've zoomed in. So you're a bird looking down. This is a plan view. Okay, so in the bottom center of that page, that dotted semicircle is the Marmato mine. That is not ours. That scale bar that is labeled about 4.5 kilometers, that's roughly the boundary of the title between Aris Mining's Marmato mine and our concession. And all those circles or ovals you see on the northwest side of that 4.5 kilometer line are targets that we generated through grassroots exploration. A solid oval means that we believe it's a major discovery. A dotted oval means it's in the exploration phase. Last thing to note, you see the Pan American Highway on the right with the power line. So look how close we are to that highway, no matter where you are on this map. One final point, all of those red mining symbols, those are permitted, operating, or licensed small-scale gold mines other than Marmato, which is much larger. And why is that important? We're in an established mining camp. The big fear globally right now is on permitting mines. In our country here, it takes about 18 years to permit a mine. In Colombia, it takes about 10 months. Okay, so that's a far more attractive proposition. And given we're in an established mining camp, the risks here of not getting permit, assuming your science is well done and when you apply, is quite low. Okay, and so this is a really attractive jurisdiction. Now let's get into the fun. Look at the drill results from these targets. I'd like to sit and tell you that we are the best team on the planet, but we're good, but we're not the best team. What has happened here is Mother Nature has dumped a lot of metal into this area. In fact, this is a camp, okay? Marmato, I mentioned, has been producing for more than 500 years. The current resource estimate on Marmato is almost 9 million ounces of gold, and we do not know how many millions have been mined historically, but it's clearly millions over 500 years. So you get the scale of that, and we found, in essence, a cluster of discoveries just northwest of it that are very related geologically to it. I won't get into that in too much detail, but look what we're finding. The flagship discovery is in the center. It's named Apollo. You can see it says Apollo system. These are remarkable grades, big bulk tonnage systems that start at or near surface and go down very far. Our second big discovery is the one on the top of that image on the northeast corner. Its name is Trap. Another significant discovery, as Anna mentioned, in Apollo, it's actually unusual that we have It's gold dominant, but we have silver, copper, and some tungsten. The rest of these are gold, silver discoveries. Let's take a good look at Apollo, and then we'll talk about Trap quickly and go to questions. So let's compare Apollo to the famous Marmato mine. So first off, you'll see the scale bar in the bottom center of this image, and they're only 1.75 kilometers apart. For those that can't convert, that's slightly more than 1 mile. So very close indeed. When you look at the top, you see the topography, and notice how we're higher. We have more rock or more earth that has not been eroded off into space than Marmato. Our system, Apollo, starts right at surface, and it's characterized by big bulk tonnage, high-grade intercepts. Interestingly, we've changed the color from blue over the top 1,000 meters or about 2/3 of a mile to red because the deposit has changed. So it's turned into a much higher grade bulk tonnage deposit at depth. You can see some of those assay results, 52 meters at 8.38 grams, 15 meters at 20 grams, 57 meters at 8 grams, including 18 meters at 20 grams per ton. These are big, wide, and high-grade intercepts. And it's amazing because this is wide open. If we look at Marmato Deeps, they have a similar geological transition at the top of Marmato Deeps, which happens to start at the same elevation as our ramp zone in Apollo, where it turns red. Curious and interesting. What might happen in the middle? Most of that is on our ground. We don't know. But you're getting the picture here. We have the upper Apollo characterized by giant intercepts like 450 meters at 2.67 grams per ton equivalent, transitioning into an even higher grade system at depth. And it's a big multi-million ounce system. What if we find more in between? Next slide. So some of you might be thinking when you look at the prior slide, well, hey, ramp zone starts really deep. It's like 2/3 of a mile below the earth. Why does that matter? Why would you go and drill that? Because how are you going to get it? Well, this image explains it. So look where we plan on building a mine here. It's the area on the right-hand side that says potential site for mine infrastructure. The underground portion of this mine, I should have mentioned Apollo will start as an open pit, a small one, then go underground. The underground portion, the main haulage line, is going to come in at 2/3 of a mile below the top of Apollo. So that means that this deep high grade portion that we've been finding, what we call the ramp zone, is material that will be mined very early on. So therefore it is relevant and important for us to drill as a result. Now, what I mentioned why Apollo has advantages in terms of having the Pan American Highway and roads, power and labor. Here's the other key advantage. For Apollo, it has gravity working for it. So think about a haulage line or a tunnel at that lower elevation. You're going to blast rock in underground and allow it to fall down naturally via ore chutes. That is much cheaper when you work with gravity than having big giant trucks carrying rock up, high cost in diesel or electricity or however you run your trucks. Secondly, Colombia has water. There's lots of it. It's really the key thing we need to focus on to make sure we produce clean water out of a mine here. And so we will find water when we get underground at Apollo. And when water flows with gravity versus against, it becomes a non-cost center. It just flows out and it will flow to the main Calca River nearby. The Apollo system in plan view, so again, we're a bird looking down, is that black shape that looks like an elephant. That is the block model, the model of Apollo. Again, I mentioned multi-million ounces, there. We do not have a mineral resource estimate yet. That's likely coming in 2026. But we're not done. We're expanding at ramp. It's growing. And look at the north. We have the northern silver zone. We've discovered a silver-rich zone called the Northern Silver Zone. You can see the results. And look at the gold vein zone. I mean, it's 300 meters at north of 1 gram per ton drilled right below the surface. None of that is modeled yet. So this is a growing multi-million ounce system, really world-class in its tenor. And we look forward to being aggressive with the drill. This year, as I mentioned, 60,000 meters or 180,000 feet of drilling. Last way to look at Apollo, does the grade continue all the way down to ramp with attractive grades? I think this slide speaks for itself to each of you. Take a look at those drill results. It's not every day you see companies drilling multi-hundred meters at multiple grams per ton, a lot of them right from surface. So spectacular system indeed. Last thing I'm going to show you is the trap system. Remember, this is a long strike about 2 miles from Apollo to the northeast. Okay, this is what we deem our second major discovery. We've drilled 700 meters or about 2,000 feet of strike length, confirmed mineralization. You can see some amazing assays there. Again, this system starts right below surface, so very, very shallow. And it's sitting very close to where the future mine we envision where it will be built. So as a result, it's material or ore, that future ore that will be brought out very early in the mine life and can complement Apollo. You know, look, our goal as a company is really twofold, and this is the important point. It's to drill off a system, a global resource on the project of more than 10 million ounces in gold equivalent, so gold plus copper plus silver plus tungsten, but also demonstrate a future mine that can produce at a high velocity. What we define as a high velocity is 300,000 ounces per annum or more. I think we're well on our way to doing so. We've got an aggressive plan in place for this calendar year. As I mentioned, you can see, look at, these are the targets we'll be drilling this year. So, X and Tower, I didn't even mention them. 2 grassroots targets, 2 very exciting targets in 2 dimensions. What if we make another major discovery? What does that do for the future value of this project? Obviously, it's speculative. And you note at our San Antonio project, we are currently drilling the Pound target. First results from that are expected sometime in the second quarter. Last thing I will say before opening it up to any questions you might have is, we are one of the most aggressive advanced exploration stage mining companies on the planet. There will be significant news generated by this company. You will see drill holes out every 2 to 3 weeks, plus other goodies along the way. And we expect to demonstrate significant growth in that 180,000 feet of drilling we do this year. With that said, I would like to open it up to any questions, and thank you very much for those listening.
Wonderful. Ari, thank you so much. Paul, he says, it seems to me that Collective is an attractive takeover candidate. So how do you ensure this doesn't happen too early at a low valuation?
Well, and that's actually a good question. You said it was by someone named Paul. Mm-hmm. So Paul, if you're listening, that's a good question. So look, I'm going to answer that in a couple of ways. Number one, you saw the management and insider position, it being very high at about 45%. So we have a strong blocking position if anyone were to try and go hostile on us at this early stage. So that gives us some comfort in being able to protect ourselves. With that said, I believe we're in an amazing M&A environment for mining. I mean, gold prices are at all-time highs or near them at around $2,900 an ounce. More importantly, the larger production companies have record margins of free cash flow, that the best they've ever had in my career, which goes back to the early 1990s. So we're seeing a lot of cash being generated and a need to grow. And I think we're going to see enormous amount of M&A in this space in 2025. I will add this, in my career, I've never seen the cupboard so bare in terms of high quality precious metal discoveries. There's not too many. So obviously I believe strongly we'll be an attractive target at some point, but our goal is to get this valuation up to something higher than we sold Continental Gold for, which, as I mentioned, was 2 billion Canadian. I think this one is going to be worth more. We're currently only trading, at about 400 or 450 million US. So we have a long way to go, and the drill will drive that value. Any other questions, Anna?
Thank you. Yes, there are. Just talk a little bit about your view on the gold market and where we are in the cycle for gold equities.
So we are in a bull market, okay? And there's no question we're in a bull market. And this is not coming from someone who's a perma bull. Look, mining, we can analyze all the reasons why gold or copper or anything goes up and down, but there is a pretty much constant for the last 100 years. The bull markets tend to last about 10 to 12 years, followed by bear markets of equal timeline. Okay, this is the cyclicality of commodities. So the gold producers peaked in 2011, and if you look at their charts, the producers started a bull market in 2022. The non-producers like ourselves peaked in 2012, and lo and behold, I think the bottom was strongly put in place in the summer of 2024. So we are early, okay? I don't know if we're in inning one, but maybe we're in inning two, okay? And so there's a long way to go in this bull market. And I think what everyone listening should know, although gold's at an all-time high, the equities, whether they're producers or non-producers, are at historic lows still relative to the commodity price. So there's going to be enormous capital that will flow into this space, but it has only just started. So you're early, you're not late, and we should, according to history, have something like 8 or 10 more years left to fund before we should get out and do something else again.
Wonderful. So question, the new ramp zone, is it really new, or is it simply a continuation of optimization deposit directly above?
It is a new discovery. So although it's below Apollo directly, this is something new, okay? The chemistry of it is completely different than the upper Apollo, right? We see a different matrix and we believe there's a different cause for it. So ignore the fact that it's sitting below the upper, 2/3 of a mile, or sorry, 600, 2/3 of a mile at Apollo. It's like it's somewhere else because it's completely different and unrelated. And we're really excited because we think it, if you look at the dimensions of our neighbor at Marmato and their Marmato Deeps deposit, which has more than 6 million ounces out of their global almost 9 million ounce resource, if we have those similar dimensions, we don't know this yet, but if we do through drilling and we continue to see much higher grades like we've been seeing so far, it could add millions more ounces to our inventory. So it's potentially very significant. And yes, it is different.
And when might we get drill results from San Antonio?
Those are due sometime in Q2. I mean, we finished our first hole. Our second hole is underway. We will send them in a batch to the lab. So maybe mid-April, mid to late April would be a good guess in terms of the timeline. And we have fast assay turnaround from the laboratories. There's no problems
there. Ramp zone.
Anna, can you repeat that? It cut out for a second.
Sorry. Yes. Are there more structures nearby that are similar to the very exciting ramp zone?
Marmato Deeps. So that is, 1 mile away, just slightly over 1 mile away. As I mentioned in the presentation, I'm going to speculate that we have a good chance of finding other similar structures between Marmato Deeps and the ramp zone. And most of that is sitting on ground that we control for mineral rights. So, I really like this discovery. The cause of it is from a big event at depth. That event can easily spread 2 miles. Okay, so I think we've got legitimate shot at finding more of these structures in between the large Marmato Deeps and what we hope will become a large ramp zone.
And Simone asks if you can talk about any advantages to the land not being completely saturated with other gold miners at this point.
Well, this is the Colombian story. Okay, so the better question is, why were we able to consolidate this sitting next to a 500-plus-year-old mine? And that's because it's Colombia. There's just not a lot. The gold exploration business is relatively new, in the modern world there. I mean, this is, if this was Nevada, right? I mean, it would have been picked over and drilled off, 50 years ago by everybody. We are fortunate to have recognized this. I do think that we're looking at a mini version of the Newmont Barrick history in Nevada, which I'm sure you don't know, but Newmont has been and was operating for multi-decades in Nevada with big mines, and this little company named Barrick went and staked the project next to a mine of Newmont's that they had overlooked, and it became what would ultimately be known as Gold Strike, which for I think 25 years was the largest gold mine on the planet, producing more than 2 million ounces per annum, right under Newmont's nose. So you have this RS Mining with Marmato sitting there, and I think we've picked the pocket right beside them, and I think we have a much better ground.
Wonderful. Ty wants you to speak about the potential for sub-parallel zones within the ramp discovery at depth.
That's going to happen. I mean, Marmato has that. It's going to happen. It's not going to be one giant homogeneous zone like the Upper Apollo. It's going to be shoots. We found 2 of them from only 4 drill holes with assays so far. It's brand new. We've got 2 more holes that are due out early March. Core looks very interesting in both of those holes, so I'm hoping that they will hit. And let's systematically drill this. Be aggressive, but be smart. And let's see how fast we can find more of these shoots, because they are very high grade and quite attractive.
And 2 questions from Dustin. He wants you to identify a timeline for study results that are coming in the future.
Okay. To answer that question, resource estimate we think will be in 2026. We are in growth mode, meaning our Apollo and these systems are growing. So if we continue to grow, I'm always of the view, keep growing. And then once you stop growing, put your resource estimate out and then put your economics around, what the mine might look like. But while we're growing, I don't see any reason to rush that out, because it pins the picture at a moment in time, and that moment in time will change drastically if we continue to grow through the drill bit.
And he also asks, what's the future for CNL? Is it partnering or a sale?
So we're preparing the company to build, but we're always open to a sale. If you were to put a gun to my head today, so to speak, and say, what would you do if you had your choice? I would say we'd want to be a seller, even though we previously built a mine. And that's predicated on the current state of the world economy. I mean, we're in an inflationary environment. Interest rates are up. When we built the last mine, interest rates were negative, believe it or not. The yield was slightly negative in Europe and 0 here. So now you have 5% interest rates, slightly higher. And so I think mines are better built by companies with cash on the balance sheet to pay for that versus borrowing, because the costs have gone up. But with that said, when we come out with studies in 2 years, maybe the world will be different and we'll want to build. I don't know. Maybe interest rates will be back low, and I don't know what will be in 2 years, but I hope that answers your question. But today, if I had to make a choice, I would sell versus buy, but versus building. But I would build if the environment was different.
Wonderful. Well, Ari, thank you so much. I want to give you a minute or so to give our viewers some closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Anna, and viewers, thank you for listening. As I iterated earlier, which I will reiterate again, this is a wonderful opportunity for one of the great precious metal discoveries made globally. This is not grassroots early stage. We've made the discoveries. All of it was generated by ourselves. There's almost no historic drilling on this project, and you don't see this type of prospectivity very often anywhere in the world. This is like going into Nevada 80 years ago before it was staked and picked over by large companies. So a pretty exciting opportunity to be involved in. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ari. We'll see you again in the future. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. We'll be right back.